All right, ready to dive into some current affairs that are perfect for you future IAS officers. Today, we've got a mix that's going to test your knowledge on everything from legal stuff happening at the Delhi High Court to some cool new discoveries right here in India.
Yeah, we'll make sure you understand why it all matters for the UPSC exam. Think of this as your daily dose of prelims prep.
Okay, so first up, something caught my eye. It's about the DRI, the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence.
Right.
Their powers are being questioned in the Delhi High Court. Sounds kind of serious, right?
Definitely something to pay attention to. The DRI, they're a vital part of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. The CBIC, which is under the Ministry of Finance, they're the front line against smuggling and making sure the government gets its customs duty.
So like the protectors of our borders and the Treasury all in one.
Exactly.
What's this court case about then?
Well, the court basically said things aren't clear when it comes to the DRI's powers, especially like, can they issue notices? How do they recover duties? That kind of thing. They call it a flex, which could be a problem for the DRI doing its job properly.
I see where you're going with this. A prelims question on like the DRI's legal side and how it affects governance wouldn't be a surprise, huh?
Not at all. UPSC loves to see if you understand how the government machinery works, and this case shines a light on a very specific part of it. Knowing what the DRI does, where it fits in the government structure, and even the problems it faces because the laws aren't crystal clear, that's powerful knowledge for the exam.
Makes sense. It's not just memorizing facts. It's about the whole picture.
Yeah.
How do laws, possible problems, even the whole idea of how the country's run affect what the DRI can actually do?
Exactly. And, oh, here's a fun fact. Just for your prelims prep, the DRI enforces over 50 different acts. That's a lot of responsibility.
Wow, 50. Okay, mental note taken. Now, for something totally different, researchers found 5 new species of Darwin wasps in India and Thailand. Now, before you're like, wasps, why? This is relevant, I promise.
You're right to bring it up. Biodiversity and ecology, they pop up all the time in the UPSC syllabus, so new discoveries matter.
All right, then. What's so special about these Darwin wasps, besides the cool name?
They're parasitoids, which is fascinating in itself. A parasitoid lays its eggs on or even inside another insect. Then the larva they develop by, well, feeding on the host. And eventually, it kills the host.
Whoa, so like tiny assassins of the insect world.
In a way, yeah. But a parasitoid usually has just one host for its whole life cycle, unlike a predator that might kill and eat lots of prey.
Okay, interesting difference.
Oh.
But how does this link back to the UPSC exam?
Think about it. Darwin wasps, they mainly go after pests, like moths that bug our crops, beetles, even other wasps. So they're naturally keeping those insect populations under control. No nasty pesticides needed.
Oh, now I see it. This is like that biological control concept in agriculture, right? A solution to the whole pesticide problem.
Exactly. And sustainable agriculture, that's hot stuff for both prelims and mains. So understanding how things like Darwin wasps maintain that balance in nature is important. Oh, and specifically for prelims, remember the 4 new Indian species and where they were found? Microleptes kiani in Tamil Nadu's Kalikad Mundantharai Tiger Reserve, Microleptes gorishankari in Karnataka's Bilagiri Ranganathaswamy Temple Tiger Reserve, Microleptes sandeshkaduri in Arunachal Pradesh's Siang Valley, and Microleptes terriensis in Terry, Uttarakhand.
Wow, that's a mouthful. But locations are key. Got it. Okay, moving on from insects to a really heartwarming story. The Birhor tribe in Sharkhand, they're a PVTG, and they've joined the fight against child marriage.
This is big and definitely UPSC relevant. PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, they need special attention because they're vulnerable, often marginalized both economically and socially. The government has specific programs to help them, all of which could be prelims material.
So a question about PVTGs in general, their issues, or what the government's doing for them is pretty likely.
Absolutely. Now, about the Birhor specifically, they're mainly in Sharkhand. Their name actually means jungle people, and traditionally they're nomadic gatherers and expert rope makers living in harmony with the forest.
I can picture it, making ropes from jungle plants, passing that skill down through generations. It's awesome that they're taking a stand against child marriage, showing how things can change within their community for the better.
You've hit on a great point. The UPSC often wants to see you go beyond just the facts. This shows how the Birhor are shaping their own future, adapting traditions to what's best for them.
Okay, from Jharkhand's forests, let's shift to the Red Sea. India is worried about attacks on ships there, and it's a crucial trade route for us.
This is where geography and current affairs meet. The Red Sea, it's that sea between Africa and Asia, connected to the Indian Ocean through the Gulf of Aden and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And of course, it's home to the Suez Canal, that super important shortcut for ships going between Europe and Asia.
So if things go wrong in the Red Sea, it messes up global trade, energy, even military movements.
Mm.
Makes sense why India is concerned.
Precisely. Now, quick map quiz. Can you name all the countries that border the Red Sea? That's the kind of detail UPSC might throw at you.
Let's see, on the east, we've got Saudi Arabia and Yemen. To the west, there's Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, and Djibouti. And wait, Egypt's on the north too, right?
You nailed it. Now, a bit more Red Sea geography. It's the world's northernmost tropical sea, which makes it pretty unique. Like, the water is super salty because lots evaporates, but not much fresh water flows in.
So it's like a marine desert.
You could say that, but it's got a lot of life too, especially coral reefs. Oh, and fun fact, the Red Sea sometimes actually turns red because of a type of algae called Trichodesmium erythraeum that blooms there.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, enough about the Red Sea for now. Let's head back to India to the Mehrauli Archaeological Park in Delhi. They're finding some amazing things there.
Ugh. The Mehrauli Archaeological Park. Over 440 monuments in 200 acres. It's what's left of Delhi's first city, Law-Cut, with buildings from all sorts of periods, the 11th century, all the way to colonial times.
It's incredible, all that history in one place.
Hmm.
For our listeners getting ready for the UPSC, what are some monuments they should really know about? The kind that could be on the exam.
Well, there's the Tomb of Balban. It's special because it's got the first real arch and dome built in India. Then there's the Jamali Kamali Mosque and Tomb, beautiful example of Indo-Islamic architecture. And the Rajan Ki Baoli, a stepwell, shows you how smart they were with water back then.
And of course, the Iron Pillar. It's been there for like 1,600 years and hasn't rusted. Think about the skill it took to make that.
Absolutely. The Iron Pillar, it's a testament to ancient Indian metalworking. UPSC often asks about specific monuments, their style, when they were built, so pay attention to that in your studies.
Right, so it's not just names, it's understanding why these places are important in Indian history and architecture.
Exactly. Now, south to Tamil Nadu, a 1,300-year-old temple just won a UNESCO award. The Abathsahayeswarar temple in Thanjavur, a prime example of Chola architecture.
Sounds grand. Tell us more. What makes it so special?
It was built during the reigns of King Vikramarala and King Kulothunga Chola, and it's got 5 prakarams, those enclosures, which is typical of Chola temples. It adds to the feeling of sacredness as you go towards the main shrine.
5 enclosures, wow. What about the style itself? What should our listeners know about Chola temples for their prelims prep?
Chola temples, they're famous for their towering gopurams, those gateways, the detailed carvings, huge halls with rows and rows of pillars. The Abathsahayeswarar temple is a perfect example. And the UNESCO award, well, it recognizes how important and valuable it is to the world.
Speaking of UNESCO, what exactly does this Asia-Pacific Award for Cultural Heritage Conservation mean?
It recognizes the amazing work people and organizations do to restore and protect old buildings in the Asia-Pacific region. And it's not just the building itself, it's understanding and appreciating the culture and religious importance, too.
Right, keeping that heritage alive for everyone.
Exactly. Now, switching gears to science, IIT Madras did something awesome. They made Darini, a 3D digital model of a fetal brain.
Wait, a digital map of a developing brain? That's incredible. Tell me more.
Darini is the biggest publicly available dataset of this kind, and it's already helping researchers find over 500 different brain regions. Basically, a super detailed atlas for studying the brain.
And it was made right here in India using our own tech, and it costs way less than similar projects elsewhere. Talk about a win for Indian science.
Absolutely. And what's really exciting is that Darini could help us understand and diagnose developmental disorders way earlier. Imagine what that could mean for helping kids.
This is huge. It's like we're seeing the human mind being formed. I can already see a prelims question about Darini and why it matters.
You got it. And remember, the UPSC loves to showcase advancements in Indian science and tech, so keep this one in your notes.
All right, from the brain to the Eastern Mediterranean, where things at the Latakia port in Syria have been in the news.
This brings together geography, international relations, and current events. Latakia, it's Syria's main port on the eastern Mediterranean coast, handles most of their imports and exports, so what happens there affects their whole economy.
Makes sense. It's vital for their trade. Now, for those who need a quick geography refresher, where is Syria exactly?
Syria's in Western Asia, bordering the Mediterranean Sea to the west. It's a really strategic location, lots of different countries and interests clashing there, which make it a geopolitical hotspot.
And those recent events, they involved Israeli military strikes. which has everyone worried about things getting worse.
That's right. The strikes targeted places linked to Iran at the port, which shows the ongoing fight between Israel and Iran that's happening all over the Middle East.
Okay, so this whole thing highlights how complicated the Eastern Mediterranean is and how these conflicts could easily grow and involve other big powers. Definitely something to follow closely.
Absolutely. Now, for something a bit more positive, how about Exercise Desert Night? It's an air combat exercise with India, France, and the UAE.
Sounds exciting, like an international team up in the sky. Why is this important?
It's all about improving how our air forces work together, strengthening those defense ties. It also has strategic implications for the Indo-Pacific and Persian Gulf regions.
So it's not just showing off, it's building trust and making sure these air forces can cooperate in a real-life situation.
Exactly. And this exercise is a direct result of a framework set up in 2022 by the foreign ministers of all three countries, shows that this collaboration is going strong.
And what makes this even cooler is the aircraft involved. Sukhoi 30 MKIs, Rafales, F-16s, high-tech stuff.
It is, and it shows how these three nations are becoming closer, not just in defense, but also trade, investment, and culture. It's a multifaceted partnership.
Got it. It's not just military, it's the whole package.
Yeah.
And definitely something that could be analyzed in a mains answer.
Absolutely. And to end this part on a positive note, there's been a conservation win in Assam's Nameri Tiger Reserve. The white-winged wood duck, which is endangered and also Assam's state bird, was spotted in an artificial pond they call Nilamoni Beal.
That's fantastic, especially because this duck is critically endangered and only found in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh in India.
Right. This shows that conservation efforts can really work and how important it is to restore those habitats.
Back again for more deep dive action, perfect for you UPSC aspirants. We're going to keep breaking down these important current affairs.
Yeah, ready to dig deeper.
You bet. That DRI case we talked about, it really makes you think, like, what happens when the rules aren't clear for these government agencies?
You've hit on something important there. Imagine the DRI, their job is to stop smuggling and make sure the government gets its customs money. But their authority, it's all murky.
Like fighting a battle with one hand tied behind your back.
Exactly. If it's not clear if a DRI officer can issue a notice or take certain goods, you could end up with years in court, justice delayed, and less money for the government.
So this isn't just some theoretical legal thing. It has real consequences. For businesses, for the government's budget, even for how India is seen on the global stage.
Exactly that. Think about it. If businesses don't know what to expect because the enforcement's unpredictable, why would they invest here? It could hurt India's ranking for ease of doing business, and the government's working hard to improve that.
Yeah, that makes sense. This case really shows how important it is to have clear, well-defined laws if you want the government to run smoothly. Okay, from laws to Darwin wasps. I'm still kind of fascinated by those little guys.
They're a great example of how nature has solutions we wouldn't think of. We talked about how they're parasitoids, right? Using other insects to raise their young.
Yeah, the whole larvae eating their way out thing still creeps me out. Nature can be brutal.
It can be, but in this case, it's actually helpful to us. Remember, Darwin wasps go after pests that damage our crops. It's like natural pest control.
Oh yeah, the UPSC often asks about biological control, using nature instead of harmful pesticides, right?
Yeah.
Could Darwin wasps be part of that?
Definitely. It's targeted, environmentally friendly, fits right in with sustainable development, which is huge for the mains exam. Imagine writing an essay about how India is trying to achieve those sustainable development goals, and you can bring in these wasps.
Okay, I'm starting to like Darwin wasps a bit more. Tiny eco-warriors helping our food supply.
That's a great way to put it. Now back to Shark Hand. Let's talk more about the Birhor tribe and their stand against child marriage.
It's such a powerful story. It's not just about saying no to a harmful practice. It's about a community that's often overlooked taking control of their future.
Exactly. The Birhor, they're a PVTG. They faced a lot of challenges, and for them to actively try to change things, it's really impressive.
And for our prelims prep, it's crucial to know about PVTGs, what makes them vulnerable, and what the government's doing to help.
Totally agree. But let's think like the examiner. What would make your answer stand out? Go beyond just listing facts.
I get it. Connect the dots. The Birhor, their lives are so connected to the forest, right? Traditionally, they're rope makers, using what they find in the jungle.
And now they're weaving a different kind of story, one where child marriage isn't part of their culture anymore. It's about adapting, moving forward without losing respect for where they come from.
Okay, I'm making a note of that. It's a great example of how tradition can change for the better.
Now, from the forests to the Red Sea again. We talked about its strategic importance, the trade route, the attacks on ships. But let's get into some more Red Sea geography, shall we?
Hit me with those prelims-worthy facts. I'm ready.
Okay, remember how it's the world's northernmost tropical sea? Well, that makes it really special. For instance, it's super salty, much more than other open seas.
Wait, why is that?
A few things cause that. First, tons of water evaporates there, and not much fresh water comes in from rivers, so the salt gets more concentrated. It's tough for a lot of marine life to survive there.
Makes sense. But it's not totally lifeless, right? Those coral reefs we mentioned.
Exactly. They've adapted to the heat and salt. They're super tough. And another fun fact, remember those straits? Bab el-Mandeb connects the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean.
Oh yeah, and controlling those straits is a big deal geopolitically. It affects trade and military movement.
Exactly. Knowing those straits, their names, where they are, it's crucial for prelims. Okay, from the salty Red Sea to Delhi's Mehrauli Archaeological Park, still blows my mind. Over 440 monuments.
It's like walking through all these different chapters of Indian history.
It is. And for our UPSC folks, it's not just about knowing how many monuments there are. It's about picking out the important ones, understanding their significance.
Yeah.
Like the Tomb of Balban, the first true arch and dome in India.
Yeah, a real turning point in architecture, moving away from that old trapezed style.
Right. And then the Jamali Kamali Mosque and tomb, that beautiful jolly work, so peaceful. The Rajan Ki Baoli, a stepwell showing how people used to manage water. Amazing.
Those stepwells, they weren't just practical, they were works of art, and often places where people gathered. I'm thinking prelims question. Which monument is not in the Mehrauli Archaeological Park?
You're getting it. UPSC loves to test you on specific monuments and where they are. Brush up on that art and culture. Okay, now down south to Tamil Nadu, that Chola temple, the Abathsahayeswarar temple in Thanjavur, remember?
One that won the UNESCO award.
Yeah.
It's great to see Indian architecture getting recognized globally.
It really is. The Abathsahayeswarar temple shows just how amazing Chola architecture was. Those 5 prakarams we mentioned, they're not just walls. They create this feeling of awe as you move towards the main shrine.
Like a spiritual journey built into the architecture itself.
I love that way of putting it. And remember, key features of Chola temples: towering gopurams, the detailed carvings, huge halls with rows of pillars, bronze statues, know that. And you can spot Chola style in a picture, maybe even a prelims question.
Great tip. And that UNESCO award, it's interesting how it encourages private people and groups to get involved in preserving these places.
That's a great observation. It shows that things are changing, recognizing that everyone has a part to play in protecting our heritage. Something you could even bring up in a mains answer about cultural policy or the role of civil society.
Okay, noted. Back to that scientific breakthrough, the Darwin project from IIT Madras, that digital fetal brain.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Being able to study a developing brain in such detail.
It's like we're unlocking the secrets of how our minds work, and the fact that it was done in India with our own tech makes it even more special.
Shows what Indian science can do on a global scale, and the UPSC loves to highlight that. Darwin is a sign of how much India is growing in research and innovation.
And it's not just the tech, it's what it could mean. Mapping the fetal brain could change how we understand developmental disorders. Earlier diagnosis, better treatments.
Imagine how many kids and families could be helped by that. It's really inspiring.
All right, from the brain back to geopolitics, that situation at Latakia port in Syria.
A reminder of how unstable that region is. Latakia is Syria's lifeline, economically speaking. And those Israeli strikes, they were aimed at places connected to Iran, shows that proxy conflict isn't going away.
It's a conflict with wide-ranging consequences, affecting not just those 2 countries, but the whole region and even global powers.
Exactly. Remember, Syria's complicated. You've got Russia involved, Turkey, so many different groups. It's like a chess game. Each move affects the whole board.
And understanding that game is vital for UPSC. It's not just names and dates. It's about analyzing why countries do what they do, who their allies are, and what might happen next.
You got it. Let's take a break from that and go back to exercise Desert Night, the air combat training with India, France, and the UAE.
A real symbol of cooperation, building those strategic partnerships.
Exactly. This exercise, with all those advanced jets, shows how strong their defense ties are becoming. And remember, it's not just military. It's about trust, knowing they can work together if they need to.
And that partnership goes beyond defense, right? Trade, investment, culture, a multifaceted relationship that matters in the Indo-Pacific and Persian Gulf.
Precisely. That's the kind of analysis the UPSC wants to see. Connect the dots, see the big picture, understand the strategy behind it all.
Okay, taking notes. Now, let's end on that positive news from Assam's Mehrauli Tiger Reserve. The white-winged wood duck, that critically endangered bird spotted in the Nilmoni Beale, gives you some hope, right?
It does. Even with all the environmental problems, conservation can work. It's a good reminder.
And for those studying for the UPSC, it shows that even something small, like seeing one rare bird, can tell us a lot about how to protect our ecosystems.
Well said. We'll be back soon with the final part of our deep dive. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone. Last leg of our deep dive. It's amazing how we've covered so much ground, from the DRI and legal stuff to Darwin wasps and even ancient temples, all the way to high-tech brain research. It shows how everything's connected, right?
Absolutely, and that's something UPSC really looks for. Can you connect the dots? Can you see the big picture? Can you show that you understand the world as a whole? That's what makes a successful UPSC candidate.
Okay, let's do a final check on all these important topics. Make sure you're ready for those prelims questions. Starting with the DRI case. What are the key things future civil servants should take away?
Remember that the DRI, they're essential for protecting our borders and keeping that revenue flowing smoothly. That high court case, it showed how important it is that their powers are crystal clear.
Right, it ties into good governance and accountability, which are core themes in the UPSC syllabus. If the DRI's powers are fuzzy, it can cause all sorts of problems, inefficiencies, legal battles, even hurt India's ease of doing business.
Exactly. It's not just knowing what the DRI does, it's understanding how laws and the whole structure of government affect their work. UPSC loves to see that you can think beyond the surface.
Got it. Connect those dots. See how one event points to bigger trends and ideas. Now, what about the Darwin wasps? What should our listeners remember about these little guys who pack a punch?
Besides that cool parasitoid lifestyle, think about their role in the ecosystem. They target pests. It's a natural, precise way to control them. Perfect for answers about sustainable agriculture or biocontrol, which come up a lot in the UPSC.
Right, they're like nature's pest control team, helping us out without harming the environment.
And speaking of helping those in need, what insights can we take away from the Birhor tribe standing up against child marriage?
That story is full of UPSC-relevant stuff. First, the Birhor. They're a PVTG, a particularly vulnerable tribal group. Knowing about PVTGs, their problems, the policies to help them, that's essential for prelims.
And going deeper, their choice to fight child marriage, it shows a real shift happening in the tribe, breaking free from harmful things, embracing positive change. Right, it shows they're taking control, wanting to improve their lives while still respecting their traditions. Imagine using this in a mains answer about social change, how cultures evolve, even the power of grassroots movements. It would make your analysis much stronger.
Good point, definitely noting that down. Okay, let's navigate back to the Red Sea, a place that's both geographically important and full of geopolitical twists and turns.
Remember those map questions UPSC loves? Knowing the countries around the Red Sea is important. East side, you've got Saudi Arabia and Yemen. West side, there's Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, and Djibouti. And don't forget, Egypt's also on the north.
Got those locations memorized. Beyond its strategic location, what else makes the Red Sea unique geographically?
It's the world's northernmost tropical sea, which makes it pretty special. For one, it's super salty because so much water evaporates and there's not much fresh water coming in.
Right, like a marine desert, but with a lot of life too, like those coral reefs we talked about. And fun fact alert, sometimes the Red Sea actually turns red because of those algae blooms.
You have a sharp memory. Amazing how something seemingly simple can have such a big impact on the ecosystem. That kind of connection is what UPSC examiners love to see.
From that salty sea, let's go back to Delhi's Mehrauli Archaeological Park. Over 440 monuments. Incredible.
A real treasure chest of architectural wonders showing us centuries of Indian history. Remember the Tomb of Balban? First true arch and dome in India?
A major leap forward in architecture, right?
Yes. And then you've got the peaceful beauty of the Jamali Kamali Mosque and Tomb, the clever design of the Rajan Ki Bali stepwell, and of course the iconic iron pillar, standing strong for over 1,600 years without any rust.
It's like a history lesson come to life, all in one park.
Absolutely. And for those getting ready for the UPSC, remember, it's not enough to just recognize the monuments. You need to understand their historical background, the architectural styles, the dynasties they're connected to. Imagine being able to look at a picture and know the style or period it it comes from. That's powerful knowledge.
Taking notes. Okay, one last trip down south to the Abathsahayeswarar temple in Thanjavur, that amazing Chola temple.
A true masterpiece of Chola architecture, with its 5 prikarams, the towering gopuram, all those intricate carvings and bronze statues. The UNESCO award proves how beautiful and culturally important it is.
It's inspiring to see this ancient Indian architecture being celebrated and preserved. And it's not just the buildings, it's about understanding the culture and religion behind them, passing on that knowledge, keeping traditions alive.
Well said. Now let's focus on that scientific breakthrough from IIT Madras, Darini, the 3D digital model of a fetal brain.
It's game-changing, giving us a whole new look at how the brain develops. It could transform how we understand developmental disorders.
Think about what that means. Early diagnosis, earlier treatment. It shows what Indian scientists can achieve, and it gives us so much hope for the future of brain research.
And it's not just about the science, it's about the ethical questions that come with such powerful tech. Jerini has so much potential to help, but we need to be responsible with it.
Exactly. UPSC often asks about the ethics of technology. Darini would be a great example to use in an essay about scientific progress and responsible innovation.
Noted. Before we wrap up, let's go back to that incident at Latikio port in Syria one last time.
It shows how volatile the Eastern Mediterranean is, with all those countries and different interests clashing. Understanding the history, who the key players are, what they want, that's crucial for making sense of what's happening there and what might happen next.
It's like a real-life geopolitical chess match. Every move can change the whole game. And knowing how to analyze those moves is crucial for anyone who wants to deal with international relations.
Couldn't have said it better. Let's end on that hopeful note from Assam's Nameri Tiger Reserve, where the white-winged wood duck, that endangered species, is making a comeback. Even with all the environmental challenges we face, it reminds us that positive change is possible, nature is resilient.
And it's a perfect example of how something small, like seeing one rare bird, can teach us so much about conservation and how everything in our planet's ecosystems is connected.
It's been a fantastic journey exploring all these topics and seeing how they relate to the UPSC exam.
That's what the deep dive is all about, taking those bits of information, connecting the dots, and finding that deeper understanding that lies beneath the surface.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into the world around you. You never know what amazing things you'll discover.
And to all our UPSC aspirants out there, remember, it's not just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding those connections, the nuances, the big picture. That's what will make you shine in the exam.
We'll be back soon with more deep dives to keep your mind sharp and your UPSC prep on track. Until then, good luck with your studies.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the deep dive with all your fellow UPSC warriors. We're all in this together.